In 1820, when he was around the age of 35, John James Audubon declared his intention to paint every...
Or the bum.
Audubon.
Audible.
Audubon.
Audubon. Audubon?
Audubon.
Is that your Russian accent?
That's French. It's
French-Russian.
Audubon.
Audubon.
John James Audubon declared his intention to paint every single goddamn bird in America. Over the next 19...
How did he catch them all?
I think he meant just species, but he did say every...
Oh, images of them, not the birds themselves.
I'm going to cover this in paint.
You've got to be clear. I'm going to paint every bird. There's one!
He's going to paint a picture of every single species of bird in America.
Science-related podcast, we need precision. Carry on.
You are, yes, very precise. Over the next 19 years, Audubon, it gets faster when you say it, worked tirelessly against pretty amazing odds, actually, to achieve this feat, completing in 1839 the truly stupendous, in a way that it boggles the mind, and I'll tell you a bit more about it in a sec, the truly stupendous Birds of America. Now, the book is quite justly considered one of the finest ornithological works ever completed.
Wow, that's some stiff competition. I've written a few myself and they're pretty damn good.
Well, look, let's just say, okay, as well as in the bird book world, as all books, it's way, way up there. So in December 2010, 180 years after it was finished, The Economist magazine estimated that, adjusted for inflation, 5 of the 10 highest paid books, highest prices paid for books ever were paid for copies of The Birds of America.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. 5 out of the top 10.
Is it all the same guy? It's his grandkids or something, isn't it?
It's not just no, it's not. It's not.
I'm going to try and boost the price.
So there's 120 copies known to survive of the book. Only 13 are in private hands. The rest are like in the king's. Like I'm sure the Queen has one. The rest are in like state collections and things like that. It is a very, very fancy book.
And it's big, right?
It's big. It's big. I'll tell you how big later. Well, I'll tell you how big now. It's called double elephant size.
Without even knowing, I'm like, okay, I'll get
I think
that sounds colossal.
Well, this is back in the days when they had foolscap and then folio. Don't quote these ones at all. Don't quote. But they had foolscap and folio, and then there was like quarto and
then ultra, elephant, double elephant.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, okay.
But I know that double elephant was basically 2 feet by 3 feet big.
Elephant feet? So they're rounded.
It's not far
2
off.
2 feet by 3 feet is a big book.
Yeah, so it's this table out to there. Like it's.
Well, I know 12 inches for those of you watching at home is about like that, and that's what I've been taught. So that's pretty big.
That was a dick joke, wasn't it? That was a dick joke.
How dare you?
Okay,
that was a metric joke.
No, so yeah, it was a metric joke. Of those copies, so just to get an idea of the price. In the year 2000, a copy sold at Christie's in New York for $8.8 million.
Fuck off.
An unbound copy. I don't know who took the cover off.
Or tore the pages out. Right. I hate the cover, but I saw
Well, without the leather cover, it goes for $5.6 million in December 2005.
But these are they're not all hand done, right? They're still mass produced, so to speak.
Not very mass produced. Not very.
But not every one hand painted, surely.
A combination. I'll tell you more about how it works later. I'll tell you. So yeah, I think the biggest one was sold in Sotheby's in 2010 for $11.5 million.
Damn.
So in the process of making The Birds of America, Audubon himself identified dozens of new species, and his fans went on to name dozens and dozens of streets, parks, zoos, towns, and counties around America in his honor.
I'm not going to ruin it, but my spider sense is tingling. Carry on.
To this day, the leading bird society, or American environmental organization dedicated to birds and their habitat.
Is that their name?
Yeah, no, it's not. Their name is the National Audubon Society. So everything,
oh wow,
like that's the boss of the bird watchers in America.
This dude is
the Audubon Society.
Yeah.
But your spidey sense was right. But right at the very heart of this book, right at the very goddamn center, was a big stinking lie. And it was a big stinking lie that took 200 years to uncover. Welcome to the Wholesome Show.
Birdsome Show.
Yes, the science and bird watching podcast.
Yes.
for people who don't actually birdwatch but do like science.
Yes, and who in which, I can't remember our words, in which we ask all the Audubon questions so you don't have to.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant.
Me, Dr. Roderick Griffin, Audubon Lamberts.
And is brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science, and probably not the National Audubon Society.
Not yet. By the end of this show, for sure.
Oh, I do worry. I might put an allegedly at the beginning of this podcast. This one comes with allegedly, but alleged in the peer-reviewed literature. So
yeah, we're just supposedly under everything, underlined.
All right.
I'm ready.
John James Audubon and the big stinking lie.
JJ. Stinking's quite a strong descriptor.
It is.
Is
That's
it actually
true.
related to odor? Because that'd be cool.
No, literally not. In fact, less odor than there should have been.
Oh.
John James Audubon, or as he was known originally,
Keith.
Jean Rabin.
Jean Rabin. Oh, so even his name's a bloody lie.
But that wasn't really, he didn't hide that fact.
No, I hate that
he was born in 1785 in the French colony of Saint-Dominique.
Is any of that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
On his father's sugarcane plantation. Now, following a very legitimate slave revolt, all slave revolts are legitimate, but at the time, his dad probably didn't think it was legitimate.
No, this one was uncool. How dare you?
Not cool.
How
Not
dare
cool,
you.
slaves. Yes, so this is when Audubon was 4. His dad said, screw this. This is getting a bit wild. Let's go back to France. But on the way back, he sold the farm and bought some property near Philadelphia. So I'm not sure why, but he just did.
On the way to France, he went to Philadelphia.
Or at least he bought a farm at Philadelphia and went to France.
Over the internet.
Same thing, 1789. But there was a moment where he said, "Screw Saint Dominic," or as it soon became, Haiti. Don't want to live there anymore. Let's split up, have a farm in Philadelphia, and go and live in France.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's not that. I mean, it's next to the Americas.
Yeah. So it could have been on the way home.
Closer than Europe.
It could have been on the way home. I'm not sure quite why, but it did make a difference in Audubon's life.
Yeah.
As in, okay, so Audubon's dad got a new wife because Audubon's mum had died when he was a few months old. His dad is also called Audubon, but I'm just going to call him his dad.
Okay.
So at that age, when he was about 4 or 5, the young Jean Rabin was officially adopted by his dad, which is again so weird. Well, his
now you are my kid.
He'd been born out of wedlock, and he was he was a natural kid, but not legal kid. But he thought, I'll take you back to France because you look enough like me to go back to France.
Hey, they've got standards, the French.
They were cool about these things back then.
You look similar, and we'll accept you.
And then gave him a longer name. So he went from Jean Rabin to Jean-Jacques Fougeray Audubon.
You mean fuggery?
Fugare.
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 Good day, mate. I'm Fugare.
Well, that was a middle name, so he didn't use that.
No one uses those. No.
Okay.
They're not real.
From his very earliest days, I think, when he's 4 or 5, I don't know, Audubon had an affinity with birds. For birds, with birds.
At birds?
Towards birds. I felt an intimacy with...
I affine towards birds.
Probably. There is some fancy language in this coming up. And by fancy, I mean long-winded 19th century language where they just wrote,
every moment.
I felt an intimacy with them, bordering on frenzy that must accompany my steps through life. His father encouraged...
Sorry, but an intimacy bordering on frenzy is not going to go well in court.
It's really not. It's really not. I don't know if it was a crime back then. His father encouraged this interest in nature. He would point out the elegant movements of the birds and the beauty and softness of their plumage. He called to my attention to their show of pleasure or sense of danger, their perfect forms and splendid attire. He would speak of their departure and return with the seasons. So, the young Audubon grew up in France, but soon it became a chaotic area because of the French Revolution. Yeah. So he grew up... He's described here as a handsome and gregarious man. He played flute and violin, learned to ride and fence and dance. He was a great walker, and he loved roaming the woods.
A great walker. People would stop and watch him and go, shit, that guy can walk.
Best walk.
Well, look at him. Look at that gait.
I think it meant he just liked taking walks.
He walked
walks in the countryside. Right. He's a hiker.
The meaning of great has shifted a little.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. He would often return with natural curiosities, including birds' eggs and nests, of which he made crude drawings. But Dad wanted to make a seaman of his son. So at 12, he sent him to military school.
Thank you.
I know, I left it for you. But
Thank you.
And he became a cabin boy. But he didn't like...
Come on, you're killing me. Carry on.
Yeah, he's a seaman cabin boy.
No, I'm going to take the high road.
He quickly found out that he was susceptible to seasickness and not fond of mathematics or navigation. So he
But other than that, hated it.
He didn't like it. And then he failed his officer's qualification test and ended his naval career. So that's it. He's not in the Navy anymore like Dad, but he went back to walking around the fields again, looking at birds.
Well, he was a great walker. Awesome walker.
In 1803, Audubon's father procured Audubon a false passport so that he wouldn't be conscripted into Napoleon's army.
Okay, yeah.
And chuffed him off to America. So while his dad was in the military but didn't want his son doing it. Maybe he was too hippie-ish, too in love with the birds.
That's fair. There's a lot of collateral damage in war, and birds are some of it.
And look, maybe if he can avoid it, do it. So anyway, he got a passport, an American passport, and renamed himself John James Audubon and went to America. So he ended up on the family farm in Philadelphia, the one that they'd bought 14 years earlier.
Yep.
By luck, maybe it's because. But anyway, he continued his hippie path there. He went hunting, he went fishing, he went drawing, and music occupied every moment. Cares I knew not, and cared naught about them. But Dad wrote to him and said, no.
Start caring.
No, mate. You got to start thinking about your future. On your farm, there are some lead mines, and the future is in bullets. So...
Oh, fuck me. Two excellent things. First, lots of lead anyway. Put it over there near the water supply. That's the best spot for it.
So you can be a bullet maker. I just love the idea that Dad says the future is in bullets. I'm seeing a lot of war around.
Look, he wasn't wrong.
It's true, but
still going.
Audubon, I think it appears. I can't quite work this out, and doubtless there are Audubon historians who know a hell of a lot more about this.
A lot of them
did appear like he did spend a little bit of time in the lead mining business, potentially in the bullet making business, but it didn't stick because you know what he was more keen on. He was way more keen on...
Seamen.
No. Painting birds.
That's what I meant.
Walking through the woods, looking at the birds, collecting their eggs, those kinds of things.
Yep.
So at this time, he would work... managing the mines, but at the same time he's walking around the woods, painting the birds, recording their behaviour. He created his own nature museum at this time. And it's brimming with birds' eggs, stuffed raccoons and possums.
By museum, do you mean a cupboard with shit in it?
I think it's a cupboard with shit in it.
No, my dear, it's a museum.
It was described as a room brimming with birds' eggs, stuffed raccoons and opossums, fish, snakes and other creatures.
Yeah, not a museum.
Yeah.
No, let's be charitable. That's a taxidermist's strange place.
I love that idea that people would just make their own museum. Like he's only 18 or so at this time.
Oh, okay. I'll cut him some slack. He's a kid.
Here's my room full of stuff.
Oh no, wait. What are we? 18 something? 18. You're pretty much a parent moving on to grandparenthood, aren't you?
Possibly. I think he wasn't the poorest, so he didn't have to go and work straight. He owned a farm. And some lead mines. So he probably has enough wealth that he can dabble in having one's own museum. So
I love that. I want a museum. I'm going to do that after we finish recording.
Just do it. What do you have in your museum?
I haven't decided yet. It's going to be famous. It's going to be quality. A museum of...
I feel like every kid, though. They kind of have a museum in their room anyway of shit they should throw out. It's just come on, man. Why have you got the bird's nest there?
This story is sounding a little bit related to reality.
No, it's worth pointing out at the time. This farm was only 20 miles outside Philadelphia, and Philadelphia at the time was, I think it was actually bigger than New York as a city, and it was the hub of scientific activity. Like that was where you went for science in America. That was.
Isn't that where Benjamin Lincoln?
Franklin?
Faraday lived?
Franklin? Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Yes, but there was a lot of scientific activity, a lot of scientific societies there, and yeah, that's where all of the key societies that would be involved in all sorts of natural science lived. But despite this proximity, Audubon was not formally trained in science, and like many other ordinary Americans who dabbled at this time in natural history. He apparently felt some contempt for the wealthy elites and their scholarly institutions.
He had an instinct.
Yeah, and look, it might come up a bit later.
I imagine it will.
Okay, that feeling was reinforced later when they kicked him out of the Academy of Natural Sciences.
Jerks.
Anyway, Audubon managed to persuade his dad that bullet mining was a bit too risky, so they sold the farm and the mine. Audubon and his wife moved to Kentucky, and they set up a general store. But again, he kept drawing birds. He just kept coming. Yeah, a general store.
Sick of mining lead. I'm going to sell pants.
And other general items. Dry goods?
Dry goods, yeah. Dry goods. Always dry goods. Got anything wet? No.
It's just flour and pans. Yep. Flour and pans. So look, he odd jobs for a while, but he keeps drawing birds. He can't stop it.
We've all been there.
I don't doubt it. He would, whenever he would draw them, he would keep it for a while and then he'd burn his efforts to force himself to get better and better.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look, and well, if he didn't like them, he would burn them. He did want to get better, and he worked really hard at getting better. And to be honest, a lot of his paintings are really, really beautiful. And
they're his? Or am I
yeah, no, that's not the lie. That's not the lie. Okay. That's not the lie.
Okay.
He definitely paints some beautiful images of birds, and they look really like. Listener, go and Google them. If we were a legit YouTube people, we would splash them over the banner.
Just listen to these pictures he has in front of him.
I know, but they're legit nice pictures of birds. I mean, as a connoisseur myself.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
They really are.
Those are pretty friggin' nice.
That's a legit, and you can imagine in double elephant size. So these
these
are glossy posters of birds doing birdie things. They look cool.
Yeah, picking nits off their butt. In this instance, I think that's a heron. It stopped you dead.
I don't know, mate.
I'll be the judge of that, mate.
I ain't no bird scientist. No. So yeah, he would keep going, but he kept working in these sorts of odd jobs, but he kept coming back to his bird paintings. Yeah. He's trying to get better. There was one period where he went out exploring, and he came home to Kentucky and found that rats had eaten all of his collection of more than 200 drawings.
Oh, good God, the angry!
I know.
What do you do?
But I think after weeks of depression, he took to the field again, determined to redo his drawings to an even higher standard. So he's not fixated on the one drawing itself. Yeah. He's fixated on the quest of getting the best, most beautiful drawings of birds.
Spurring him to greatness. Yeah. Rats have spurred a lot of us to greatness. It's true.
Okay. In 1819, one of his businesses, it was a business that he did own some slaves and stuff. So
who are we to judge? Oh, that's right.
Us.
Humans.
Yeah, humans. Yeah. So he probably shouldn't have done that. But anyway, it went bankrupt, and he had a midlife crisis. He was like, okay, that's it. I'm done.
24.
35. 35. Yeah. Midlife.
Mid-ish,
yeah, okay. Late life crisis for back then. And he said, look, I am done with this shit doing anything other than painting birds. I have a calling. My job is to paint the friggin' birds.
Good for him, though.
And so at that point, he declared he was going to paint every bird in America.
Right.
His goal was to surpass the work of Alexander Wilson. So Alexander Wilson had done...
Oh, no. You don't have to tell me about Alexander Wilson.
Okay, all right. Listen, I'll tell you. I won't tell him. But Alexander Wilson had done a similar sort of thing. Not quite as good. A bunch of them were more sketchy. They're not bad. But had documented most of the birds in America. So it was quite an important work.
Can I, out of curiosity, how do they know that?
Every bird.
Compared to what? I'll have you know I've documented most of the birds in America. I'm the first one.
Well,
okay.
Well, that might be a big part of the mystery here.
Okay.
So, yes. So, in fact, Audubon was to declare that Wilson had missed something pretty damn big.
That heron?
No, not the heron. Okay, he'd go traveling, looking for bird specimens, paying for others, so he'd get people to collect them and bring them in. And he worked on his painting. He got better and better and better. He would earn money at this point teaching painting to people or painting deathbed portraits. And he had adventures. He'd go out and have adventures. There's this one story of he's in the middle of an earthquake while he's on a horse. And it's a big earthquake. It's like an 8.1 or something like that on the Richter. Like
that's like extinction level. I mean, come on.
It's not. It's a big one. And this horse, he's like, I don't have the full-on 19th century writing to describe this. No. I was betwixt the horse and I noticed its legs went all stiff, and then it went wide and did some, and then he uses some weird horsey, and he's describing this horse putting
its fetlocks exploded and it spread its toes even though it doesn't have any.
Yeah, exactly, spreading its legs out as wide as it can go and bracing itself against the wobbling ground. I can imagine an 8.1 earthquake would be terrifying no matter what, but being on top of a horse in the middle,
8.1 is freaking humongous.
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely.
Like, that's changed the tilt of the earth. I mean, okay, maybe not quite, but that's a big earthquake.
It is a big earthquake. Yeah. It's a big earthquake.
Yeah.
There's another great story of an adventure where he was out collecting with his buddy Raffinesque, which is the most collecting name you've ever got. And Raffinesque got up in the middle of the night and noticed, it turned out later to be a bat in the corner of the room, but he thought this was a new species of bird.
Nightbird.
It's the nightbird. And he grabbed Audubon's violin, and favourite violin, it turns out.
And bashed the bat to death.
and bashed the bat to death.
Oh, actually?
Obviously, and resulting in the destruction of the violin.
Oh.
Audubon reportedly took revenge by showing drawings and describing some fictitious fishes and rodents to Raffinesque.
That'll learn him.
Raffinesque gave scientific names to some of these fishes in his later book.
So he punked him.
I have no idea. I have no idea how that's taking revenge, but that's the story.
You smashed my instrument. I'm going to show you fake drawings.
But here's the thing. When it came down to it, it became clearer and clearer that there's no way that Audubon could achieve what he wanted to do in America. He could get the specimens, he could work on his painting, but to get this whole thing done, to get all of the birds that he needed and to make it in this glorious, glossy, huge size that he wanted, he had to go to America. Not to America, to Europe. He had to go to Europe where the real money was.
Same place.
And get them to pay it. Because the only people that could really buy this, I mean, when we went, there's 120 copies.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking kings and nobles are the people that buy this thing.
Yeah.
There's no one in America that can really fund this whole thing. It's all got to be done through them.
Spend all their money on slaves.
So in about 1820, he went to Europe. And I read his letter, which is another example of awesome 19th century.
Oh, I'll get comfy.
I must touch the only thing that ever vibrated sorrow to my heart. I must leave America. With an almost despairing heart, I shall leave America early this ensuing spring, and now bid you my farewell. Yes, it is my farewell indeed, for unless a success scarce expected should take place, I never will review this happy continent, will have to abandon my long-acquired habits of watching nature at work, and droop more so amongst the dreg of the world, as it is called.
Okay, so people back then, and I mean, we've commented on this regularly, but what struck me with that is by the time you're halfway through the sentence, I've forgotten how it started.
I know.
They had serious memories.
There's something about that. They could hold on to something for so long.
But it's true, though. Like, they describe almost what the topic is, but not quite, for an hour and a half, and then they finally go,
it wouldn't be hard.
Dog.
It wouldn't be hard to say, buddy, I'm going to Europe. Hope it works out well. I'll see you in a few years.
I'm a bit sad about it, though. Rather not.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna.
Okay.
Yep.
So he's off to Europe. And here I'm going to turn to Matthew Haley's recent article in the Bulletin of British Ornithologists Club, which obviously you subscribe to.
I do.
You may have seen this or not.
Look, I have, but I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Okay. Off he goes to Europe. So as Haley notes, to say that Audubon's journey to Europe was a success would be a gross understatement. Like
double elephant success.
He got the double elephant. He nailed it all. The British basically couldn't get enough of Audubon's images of backwoods America and its natural attractions.
Fair enough.
He travelled around England and Scotland, and he later travelled around France, and he was lionised as this great American woodsman. Within a year of being there, the Birds of America was kicked off. He had the critical financial support of the British Crown and the nobility.
Right.
So let's describe a little bit. I'll give you a bit more details of what the whole Birds of America is. So it's 435 hand-coloured, life-size prints of 497 bird species.
Life size?
Many of them life-size. Let's say...
Show me the one of the ostrich.
I don't know if they're in
American,
America.
Right?
Yeah, I guess they're in America.
They're not in America.
Don't throw facts at me. So anyway, it's big. It's double elephant, as I said.
It's big.
And it's got, and I think it is all of the American bird species. But anyway, it's got a bloody lot of them.
Yeah.
The pages were organised for artistic effect and contrasting interest, as if the reader were taking a visual tour.
Fair enough.
The scientists said, what are you doing, mate? They should be organised in Linnaean order, as befitting a serious ornithological.
So the scientists came in and said, it's not boring enough.
Exactly. You've done it in the wrong order.
Can you boring it
And look,
for us?
and part of that is, like, a lot of these pictures, you're seeing these birds in a sort of natural habitat. You know, there's pictures of eagles that have got a salmon in its claw and stuff.
It's majestic and delicious.
No, and so... They are depicting the animal really well, but they're also showing it doing stuff, which is probably not as sciencey as it could be.
No, they must appear in isolation so you can control for all extraneous variables.
So the cost of printing the entire work, it was a lot. It probably would have been about $2 million today.
To print all of them, or
to print all of them.
Right.
I think all of them. It took a long time to they
all hand colored.
So basically, you'd get a subscription and you'd get sent in the mail the new one every so often.
Okay.
So you wouldn't get the whole book, and then you'd bind them, or you can bind.
It's those classic installment things where if you want to know all about the history of Star Trek Under the Decks, but the first 3 binders are free, and after that, it's only a mere $999 for the rest of your life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So he paid for the $2 million cost, or back then little money, but anyway,
£5. Yep.
Would have been paid. It was paid for with advanced subscriptions, exhibitions, oil painting commissions, and animal skins, which Audubon hunted and sold. I do love that a scientific project actually paid for with animal skins.
Literally, here you go. Here's my 9 beaver pelts.
So it took him a long time to get it all done. It took 14 years to finally get it done. Now, in terms of how it would work, he would draw them and paint them himself, but then the next person in the line, it was a production line.
Yep.
The next person would engrave it onto a copper plate.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so you're gonna stamp it with the copper plate.
Yep.
But then they would have a production line of like 50 people that would color in their specific bit. So if they're producing 120 of these paintings, then they would do, okay, you do the light pink around here. And now
so Audubon did the outlines.
Yeah, well, he did
the concept of the original colouring and all
the concept of the original colour and the outline. So it's all his art, but it's been made into a production line. But it is all hand coloured.
Yeah.
By actual people, but not by Audubon necessarily himself each time.
Okay.
So it's a huge production line process, which is amazing. Now, people loved it. So a contemporary French critic wrote, "A magic power transported us into the forests, which for so many years this man of genius has trod. Learned and ignorant alike were astonished at the spectacle. It's a real and palpable vision of the new world." Probably that was part of it as well.
Learned.
Like
ignorant.
No, they were keen. They were keen. They'd be like, "Holy shit!"
I'm sure it's freaking magnificent. I'd love to see this.
This is an amazing vision of the new world.
Yeah, it sounds fabulous.
Okay. Another reviewer. "All anxieties and fears which overshadowed his work in its beginning had passed away. The prophecies of kind but overprudent friends who did not understand his self-sustaining energy had proved untrue. The malicious hope of his enemies, for even the gentle lover of nature has enemies." Did you know that? Had been disappointed. He had secured a commanding place in the respect and gratitude of men.
How can you hate me? I'm a gentle lover of nature.
Now,
I still want to stab you.
So King George IV bought it, a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
They brought him into the Royal Society. He was the second American after Benjamin Franklin.
Wow.
So he did really well at this point. He went and did a talk, and Charles Darwin, as a student, was in the audience.
Learned nothing.
Which is cool. Cool. Now,
he already had the beard though. He's 12 years old, still had that monstrous beard, not much hair.
He's that monstrous beard guy in the audience. Now, the pivotal point at which Audubon's fortunes changed from this bleak time when he couldn't get this work funded to when suddenly he's got the kings of Europe lining up to fund it, coincided with the publication of a new species of North American eagle that he called the bird of Washington, or Falco washingtonii. Now, it was the first species described by Audubon, and it had formed the centerpiece of his work.
Going out on a limb, it's the first species he described that doesn't exist. No, I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Yeah,
Carry on.
Soon after they published this plate, so it's plate number 11, but it was the front of a big exhibition at this time.
Well, that's confusing.
He'd already done a few plates already, but this is when the momentum gathered. People looked at this thing and they're like, "Damn, that is a bird." I have been received here in a manner not to be expected. During my highest enthusiastic hopes, I am engaged in the publication of my work at last. So, what was the bird of Washington?
If that's a picture of it, that's a damn fine looking bird.
It is a fine looking bird. Look at this thing.
That's a bird I would take home to meet my dogs.
It would fare better than your dogs, I think. It's got some pointy bits.
It's covered in pointy bits.
The bird of Washington, as Audubon described it and painted it, was a new third species of eagle native to America. Now, at this point, 1820...
I'm going to guess there were two.
There were two known species of eagle in America. There was the bald eagle.
And the American eagle.
No, the golden eagle.
Golden? You never hear about the golden eagle, do you?
do.
Only the bald.
The golden eagle is like on the German flag and the Russian flag.
Just like the Americans.
Yeah, no, they have the bald eagle. But here's the big thing.
Yeah.
Here's the big thing. It's goddamn majestic, and it's 1/3 bigger than any other eagle
Every
in America.
eagle.
So suck it, bald eagle. You're the baby. This is the big one.
As it should be, but also you cannot call a bird an eagle if it's not majestic, can you?
No, not at all.
Like eagle by definition, it has majestic written into its DNA.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this is much bigger than the bald eagle.
Damn right it is.
It's this big glorious thing, and there's a nice description I'll read to you in a bit. But it looks so proud and
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's also required if you're going to be called an eagle. Proud, majestic, freaking huge, covered in pointy bits.
look like it would fuck you up. Like
Yes, and that bird does. That bird.
I did as a side bit to this. I did do a little bit of a look around for the biggest eagles in the world. There are the bald eagle in America is not a very big eagle. There are much bigger eagles. There's the Philippine eagle is maybe one of the biggest. The wedge-tailed eagle in Australia is like the 4th biggest, but the biggest. So these sorts of the bald eagle I think has a wingspan of 90 inches. I think it's 90 inches.
90.
90 inches.
I was going to say 19? No, that's a midget.
90. Yeah. Let's convert that to...
That's about 9 meters.
Something like that.
Yep.
But the wedge-tailed eagle, I think, has a wingspan of like 2 meters. Something like that. So
I saw one the other day circling in the sky.
Amazing.
That's
birds.
a big ass bird.
It's an amazing bird.
Yeah.
But the biggest eagle ever died out in New Zealand maybe 600 years ago. It's called Haast's eagle, and it had a wingspan of 3 meters.
Fuck off.
Yeah, it's seriously. It is.
That could carry away a cow.
Oh no, yeah, it could. It's it's an amazing thing.
Died out. God damn it.
I know. So that's the one that I want them to bring back.
Yes, please.
But anyway, the bird of Washington, Audubon said, was it's weird, he said, because Alexander Wilson, the dude who wrote the book that I'm sort of beating here, he'd never seen it, even though he travelled all over the bits of America where this bird is. Now, just pause for a second.
Okay.
Because at the time, the expectation now is you name a new species,
Yep.
you got to have a specimen. Like that's species specimen.
That doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Show us the body.
I found a new species of dragon. Have you got an example? I do not.
No, it's
But
at
let
home.
me assure you.
Or it's with my girlfriend in Canada.
Exactly. Look, she's got it. It's in her basement.
Just give her a call. She'll say.
Oh no, not now though, because she's at her AA meeting.
So yeah. So it was the expectation that you would have a body, and in fact, the bird people, the ornithologists, would be putting their body in the museum at Philadelphia.
Yes, they would. Although he's got his own museum, though. To be fair, he could say it's there.
it's
in
my
the cupboard
room.
with the other junk museum exhibits.
Okay. When he toured the paintings around in London and Edinburgh, he didn't have the specimen with him because he's away.
You got to preserve that.
I left it in America.
They're very rare. And they don't do well out of America. It's the Washingtonius orthognopteryx, right?
Yes. He kept claiming that there was a specimen back in Kentucky that he killed a few years ago. So now, just on how people reacted to the bird of Washington. This is the story of how he got his specimen. So here's Audubon's story. I come at last to the day I had so often and so ardently desired. 2 years had gone by since the discovery of the nest in fruitless excursions, in which I had seen copulations between members of both eagle species, but on no occasion did they mix.
So I was in the bush watching birds root.
Yes.
Cross genre. I mean,
no. He's saying that
they do it, but nothing happens.
No, they didn't mix with each other. Like what he's saying is, there wasn't a moment where my bird of Washington mated with
banged a bald eagle.
A bald eagle.
No,
they didn't, because they didn't like each other. They're different species.
And also, bald eagles, tiny, 19-inch wingspan.
Exactly, and not glorious enough for the bird of Washington's tastes.
No majesty.
But my wishes were no longer to remain ungratified. Ooh. In returning from the little village of Henderson, Kentucky, to the house of Dr. Rankin, a mile distance, I saw a bird of Washington rise from a small enclosure not 100 yards before me, where the doctor had a few days before slaughtered some hogs. I don't know if that's relevant or not.
Of course it is. I freaking love slaughtered hogs.
and alight upon a low tree branching over the road. I prepared my double-barreled piece, which I constantly carry, and went slowly.
That's my specimen gatherer.
Look, in fairness, he did. These are not a photographing times. These are a shoot 'em, bag 'em.
Okay, so I'm going to paint this bird. So first I'm going to shoot it with a double-barreled shotgun, and I'm going to paint what's left. Like, surely a more precise gun would be better.
This is the art of taxidermy, is reassembling the feathers to try and get.
You just shoot the shithead's legs off. Seriously. Okay, so he's got his double-barreled specimen gatherer.
Which he constantly carries, and went slowly and cautiously towards him. Quite fearlessly he awaited my approach, looking upon me with an undaunted eye. I fired and he fell. Before I reached him, he was dead. With what delight I surveyed this magnificent bird. Had the finest salmon ever pleased him as he did me? Never! I ran and presented him to my friend, with a pride which those can only feel who, like me, have devoted their earliest childhood to such pursuits.
Shooting
to
fine
others,
animals.
I must seem to prattle out of fashion. The doctor was an experienced hunter, examined the bird with much satisfaction, and frankly acknowledged he had never before seen or heard of it.
I've never seen bits of a bird that look like this before.
Okay, he said like he felt like Herschel, who had recently discovered Uranus, but it was called Herschel's planet at the time. Anyway, he was like, I feel like that. I've discovered something pretty friggin' awesome. But
Uranus is the preferred pronunciation.
Yeah.
Because Uranus means something different.
That's true. You're Uranus.
There's no need to be infantile. This is not that kind of show.
Audubon claimed that he saw the bird of Washington, at least 4 times over the years, including this one that he killed. But it seems
that might not be as true as it could.
No one else ever did. No one else ever did.
So he's just very gifted.
Now, just to say, people in Europe went mad for this eagle. They also loved it because it was called Washington. Washington was totally in at the time. They were like, man, Washington is a cool guy. A bird named after him must be even cooler.
Hell yeah.
That was like, they loved it. So, so William Swainson, which is one of England's leading ornithologists.
Again, you don't have to tell me. I subscribe to the journal.
He did a review of the birds of America for a copy of the work at its cost price.
Should I do a review?
I know. If it later turns out to be worth $11 million.
I'll do two.
I have long aimed at that perfection which Monsieur Audubon has so fully attained, Swainson wrote. Promoting Audubon as a genius and imploring those individuals with the means to subscribe to Audubon's book to do so. So now he turned directly to the bird of Washington. He said it was, he didn't comment on the unique anatomy or the remarkable circumstances. He said it was a patriotic symbol, an idea he knew would appeal to wealthy English nobility who was sympathetic to the American causes. This noble figure is an upright and occupies the full size of the paper. If the passions of the brute creation can be traced in their physiology, and no doubt they can, we can discern as much of the mild dignity of the great American patriot, Washington himself, in this his emblem, as can well be expressed in the head of a bird. So here,
fuck's sake, get on with it, mate. Like, really, look, it's beautiful, but just say what you mean.
It's tough in those days to write, that's a damn fine-looking bird.
Look at that bird. Reminds me of Washington. He should be part of this.
It's a glorious-looking bird.
Tops.
It's a glorious-looking bird.
I suppose pre-television, you need to drag out writing quite a bit.
So he spent a fair bit of time at that point saying, hey, rich people, go and subscribe because we need to see more of these awesome things. These pictures are so good. But back to the bird. The thing is, no one since that time, except perhaps Audubon's friends who might be coached by Audubon, has ever seen a bird of Washington.
Oh, no, I've seen one. But I wasn't then.
Now, of course, that would be, if you were a bird watcher in America right now and you saw a bird of Washington, you'd be like, God damn, I win the bird watching prize.
Yeah, you would.
I don't know what
There's a Nobel for that.
Yes. Well, I think it's the glory of itself. Like seeing that, it would be an amazing thing to see this thing. It's like a bald eagle, but it's 1/3 bigger and more majestic.
More majestic, yes.
Now, the common story over the years, and in fact, it still is the common story. So if you go to the Audubon Society or you Google bird of Washington, is one of 3 things. The bird of Washington is now extinct. That either Audubon killed the last one, or perhaps it was very much dying out at that time, and they happened to.
Okay.
Yep.
I killed it for science. Yep.
Not necessarily that he killed the last one, but that it's now extinct.
Up there.
Doesn't exist.
Okay.
2, it's super rare, which is basically saying it's
nearly extinct,
but we haven't found it. It's the thylacine of America.
Yeah.
Or the 3rd one, which is weird, I don't understand. It's a mistaken juvenile bald eagle, but it's bigger, which is weird. So,
no. With bald eagles, that's what's weird about them. The babies are bigger than the parents, and then they slowly shrink over time. It's really common. The eggs are huge.
So people have said, look, he probably misidentified it, which is I don't understand how you could misidentify something by making it bigger.
Yeah, that's definitely the baby of something smaller. There's no question.
But back to Haley's argument.
Yeah,
this is all bull. It's all a crock of shit. Like there's
Dr. Grant. That's some saucy language.
No, this is the thing. This is why allegedly, because I imagine that there are people in the Audubon Society who are quite miffed at Haley's article.
Yes,
his argument is that Audubon here committed a total fraud. He made up the whole thing. Yep. He thought, what is going to be something that is going to blow people's minds and make me stand out as a species discoverer and something that is better than the last book.
And super hard to verify.
Super hard to verify. So basically, Haley's argument is that he made up this whole species, painted a glorious picture, named it after Washington for this patriotic moment, and then everyone bought it, and he took the secret to his grave. So there's two parts. There's two parts that Haley's done to
his grave.
To his grave. He always held on that he saw it 4 times and he shot it once, and don't know what happened to the specimen that I shot.
That's excellent.
So there's 2 parts that Haley and a couple of other scholars have done to uncover this. The first part is Haley went and dug through. He spent 4 years digging through all of the archive materials of all of the relevant areas here. So this is the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia, the American Philosophical Society Library, the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, New York Historical Society, and the Yale University Archives, all the places that would have had all of these details of what Audubon was doing, saying, seeing, and all of these kinds of things.
Okay.
Wherever possible, I reconstructed the timeline of events exclusively via independent and or contemporaneous primary sources, because Audubon tended to distort the timelines in his published writings. So what he's saying there is he didn't trust Audubon's words. He went with what other people were saying Audubon was doing.
Okay, cross-referenced as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And so only by reconstructing the timeline from independent sources were Audubon's manipulations, sometimes inadvertent, sometimes deliberate, able to be exposed. In all, Audubon's record doesn't stand up to scrutiny. His claims of when he saw the bird flip and flop, his claims of where the killed specimen, where the killed specimen was, never stood up. But the second thing,
didn't they go to Canada to his girlfriend's house? They didn't find it there.
No.
Hello, Kelly. Kelly.
She would have kept it. But the second thing, and this is the other part of the evidence, the only drawing of the bird of Washington, it turns out is total plagiarism.
Even better.
It's a total copy of another book that was around. It's called The Cyclopedia of a Golden Eagle, where Audubon has basically copied a whole bunch of features of the Golden Eagle, made it look bigger and twisted a few little things. And you can see it. You put these pictures beside each other and you go, okay, it doesn't look that much the same originally. But when you look, it's the same stance, the same tips over, the same angle of everything. You look at the colouring in the eye and all sorts of things.
Those claws are the same claws.
They're different, but it's what you would do if you were just copying something and changing it. So the argument was
he not only lied, he ripped off the lie.
That's it.
The evidence for that's nice.
So the point being here is that there's all this evidence is saying that he didn't paint this from a direct source. There's no specimen that he looked at. He painted this directly by copying it from this work in the Cyclopedia. It's got the same angle of stance. Yeah, the contour of the beak and the head, the same furrowed brow line, and even an identical highlight in the eye.
Come on, dude.
Regardless of which edition the Cyclopedia Audubon source, the most parsimonious explanation for the evidence presented here is that the bird of Washington was not drawn from a specimen, as he claimed. Rather, it was amalgamation of 2 pre-existing drawings that he basically just copied.
Lazy.
But awesome and terrible. So the bird of Washington...
It's a great picture, though.
Was more than a hoax. It was a cornerstone of a highly successful and fraudulent marketing strategy that Audubon took to the grave, but allowed this amazing book to happen.
I still want to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, look, even without it, I still want to see it. I don't care.
It does look like there's a few cases of Audubon distorting the truth and maybe 6 cases of either plagiarism or fake species. This is by far the biggest one. This is the others. The others are tiny, where he might need a species, but he can't find it. Or something.
You found
like
the
that.
goldfinch. I found the off yellow.
No, not
finch.
making up new species so much. Like it was just misidentification.
Okay,
This one seems so deliberate and so right in the middle of the book, and so getting this thing that's bigger than the
chicanery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
A bunch of like the ornithologists at the time questioned this, and they said, "Oh, this is a bit shit. That there's this bird out there that we've never seen that's bigger. Bigger is usually easier to find.
Also better,
but they kept it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So, for example, Audubon's claims about a supposed specimen aroused the interests of the ornithologists in Philadelphia, and a group of them went to check it out. And this is George Ord. After doing so, the men were convinced that Audubon was lying, but were hesitant to speak out because of his growing fame. In a letter, George Ord wrote exasperatedly, "I am confident that I should have a swarm of hornets about my ears were I to proclaim to the world all that I know of this impudent pretender and his stupid book."
So basically, if I dob him in, I'm in the shit.
Yeah, they were terrified. They were terrified that they couldn't dob him in. So the scientists were like,
bird bully.
It's not true, but we can't say anything because he's got all those. His book is Double Elephant. I mean, imagine if
he could hit me with it. That shit's going to leave a mark.
Once he had enough subscribers to achieve the work, Audubon returned to America, finished things off. He made some excursions out west, and he achieved this book. And I've got to say, I would love to see it, and I'm sure it is a stupendous achievement.
No question.
In the 1840s, his health began to fail. In 1848, it seems like he manifested like senility or dementia or something like Alzheimer's disease.
He's like 45 by then.
Probably.
Easily.
Yeah. He died at his family home in northern Manhattan in 1851. Right. At the Academy of Natural Sciences, his perseverance and skill with the paintbrush were not disputed, but many members openly questioned Audubon's scientific merits. At a meeting on 4th of February 1851, in a carefully worded statement, it was resolved that by the demise of this truly great man, science has lost one of her most zealous and gifted disciples of the arts, a master in the branch he cultivated.
My bigger question. They just called science a lady.
Really?
Science is a her.
Lost one of her. So there you go. Like I love the idea that he achieved an awful lot, but put this fraud right at the middle of it. And it took 200 years to uncover this. Yeah, and it's still, I doubt that it is actually uncovered. I think there's a lot of people that will say, it's out there. We just never found it.
We don't know for sure. Bigfoot, what is it? Magnificent Eagle,
so
Washington bird.
There you go. There's some bird fraud for you.
The number of times I've heard about bird fraud. This is seventh.
Number of times?
Yeah, different birds.
All right, Rod. Well, I was going to do this a little bit later. I was going to do this as a mid-credits scene, but anyway. John James Audubon is still beloved in the ornithological world, perhaps not quite as deservedly as many believe, but some justice. But while I was researching this story, I came across another name, a name associated in the ornithological literature with the words colossal fraud, specimen stealer, war criminal, and murderer. In fact, one of the deeds that he committed actually shocked me. Like, I read it and I was like, well, he did, holy shit, what did he do? And so, not next week, not soon, but at some point in the future, I'm going to tell you the story of Audubon's evil twin, the war hero, secret agent, Dean of International Ornithology, Colonel Richard Meinertzhagen.
Ornithological war criminal.